What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. I'm here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. So glad you decided to join us today for another episode of the Alaria Masterclass podcast. We're Alabama's only real estate podcast. A lot of times we get on local guests, local to the state of Alabama, and sometimes we like to get on national guests that can give us with some great perspective of possibly where Birmingham and where the state of Alabama might sit in that national landscape. Today we have someone who is local to Birmingham, Mr. Joey Mure. How's it going, Joey?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Joey, I want to start off by telling a story.
I was not prepared for this.
You were not even mentioning this.
I'm good for this.
So, well, first of all, let me tell everybody who you are. Okay. Why don't you tell everybody who you are? You are the owner of Wealth Without Wallstreet. Tell us what that is. And
So we're a financial firm based in Birmingham, and we primarily work all over the country with entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking for creative, outside-of-the-box ways to limit taxes. That's a huge one. To make their savings go farther, like keep more of the money that they're making. That's probably the biggest thing entrepreneurs face is they've never had a trouble making money. They just don't hold on to a lot of it. So we have financial strategies, tax strategies, and other passive income opportunities that we help them to create wealth.
It's awesome. And you've been in Birmingham for quite a while.
Yep, moved here in 94, 95, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And I just decided to put some roots down. I've moved around like you did a lot and decided, man, Birmingham is like this gem. I mean, I came here thinking people didn't wear shoes and stuff like that, but found out that Birmingham is a fantastic place to raise a family, and so met my wife and decided to stay here.
So I don't know if you're like me. I met my wife here. She went to Vestavia and then went to Sanford. She was a Birmingham girl, and I don't have a choice. I have to stay here for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is that
No. She's from Montgomery, but she said I do not want to go back to Montgomery. That's how the Montgomery folks feel. So
understood. Well, I want to tell a quick story. I met Joey. I don't know if you know this. The first time I ever met Joey was in 2012. In probably April or May of 2012 through a mutual friend who put me in touch with you to get a loan. This is before I got into real estate, by the way. I didn't get into real estate until August of 2012. So this was 4, 5, 6 months before then. Mutual friend put me in touch with you to get a home loan on our very first home that we ever bought.
That's right. Yeah. That's my previous life, the home mortgage realm, and led a team here in Birmingham. So I knew your name from somewhere, and when we met later, and then you pointed that out, I'm like, there you go. I would have never put that together.
So that's how memorable you were. I remembered you.
Well, it's also, I'm probably one of the only people in Birmingham with the last name Mure, so come on.
I think it was the face, though.
Oh.
I'm not good with names. I'm good with remember faces. So it's just really interesting. I think we might have met up a couple of years later when we were both, you were kind of doing what you were doing, getting that kicked off, and I kind of really got into real estate. I was going to these meetup groups. I think you just popped up at one of the meetups.
Yeah, that's right.
And you started introducing yourself, and I was like, I know this guy. He looks really familiar. And so we just we got that in common. So
yeah, it's
cool to kind of reconnect, and it's cool to see kind of the trajectories of kind of both of our careers kind of really kind of taking off with what we kind of fell into our passions.
Yeah, no, I love what you're doing with Alaria and putting together a group. You're adding value every way that you can. I just read your book last night. I told you I was going to read it, so I stayed up till 1 in the morning.
Dang.
So I could tell you I read it before I came on today. So
well, I appreciate that.
It's fantastic.
I really do appreciate that, and I think it's really funny because you walked in here and you start telling me all these stories about myself, and I'm like, man, I really did put all that out there, didn't I?
It was awesome. Everybody now can relate to you so much better. They can. I feel like are empathetic. They can totally relate. So.
Well, cool. That's awesome. Why I did it. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And guys, if you've not gotten the book, you can go to Amazon right now.
That's right. Go get your copy.
Go to
today.
Amazon. You can search for my name, and it'll pop right up. So, Joe, the main reason I want to have Joey on the show is this is really interesting. I saw Joey speak, and I think you only spoke for like 5 minutes, but I saw Joey speak at an event, and he got up there, and he starts just kind of really honestly just you just mentioned it, just giving value. Like, you kind of knew your audience, talking to a bunch of real estate agents.
Right.
You knew your audience. You got up there and you just you mentioned a book called The 7 Levels of Communication.
Right.
That I've since bought and read.
Yeah, Michael Mayer.
Really, I hate fictional stories interwoven in books. I really hate that.
Yes.
But you can't lose the principle. It's almost like The Go-Giver. I love The Go-Giver.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I hate the fictional story. I just want the bullet points.
Yes.
But the story actually does help you remember it better. So kudos to him for he knew what he was doing.
He sold a few.
He did sell a few and got a really good endorsement on the cover too from what's his name, the financial guy, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. That's the only time we're going to say his name on here.
So yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Joey gets up and starts talking about this. The three. I'm gonna let you say it because I'm gonna butcher it. Just gets up there and said, if you want to be a better networker and a better communicator, here's some things that you could do.
Right.
And then he walks off the stage in like 5 minutes. Does not tell anyone, maybe you said your name. You definitely didn't tell people what you did for a living, where you worked, what you did. Just got up there and just provided all this value. You get off the stage, we go to break, and you're surrounded by 30 people that wanted to like shake your hand and learn more about you and talk to you.
Yeah, I think that is the main concept. I actually wrote this in the back of your book, right? Zig Ziglar. If you help enough people get what they want, that's going to get you everything that you ever dreamed. And so that concept, it's a rule. I mean, it's a universal type of rule that when you give, you will receive. Actually, I did a PowerPoint recently and was kind of looking through in Proverbs, I think it's 11:25, it says, "He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." Same concept. I mean, these aren't like universal rules that we came up with. These are God's rules for how things are supposed to work. And so I just knew if I get up there and add value, plus, I mean, obviously Jenny Williams, you've had on the show, you've had at Elleria events and whatnot. She's a dear friend, client, and I was able to go there to add value to her audience. And so I knew that was going to pay dividends, and it did. I mean, bottom line.
So I just think, obviously it's counterintuitive to what most people would think are things that you should be doing. But I think that it's really interesting because we have a lot of we have a lot of sponsors and vendors that help sponsor us, and really, honestly, we couldn't do Alleria without them. We give them 5, 10, 15 minutes to get up, and talk about who they are, what they have to offer. And it's really interesting. Most of them want to get up there and take their 10 minutes to give people as much information about them as they possibly can. And if any of my sponsors or vendors are listening to this, I want to kind of, and I've told them all this, but I want to give you a hint. You should be doing what Joey did. Joey, you had 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it was, to get up and speak to people, and you chose to use those 5 minutes to talk about how you could help them, not in your business, but how you could help them in their business,
right?
Help grow their business. And that's a huge mind shift as to what we just generally might think.
Well, I like, you even mentioned this in the book. I'm gonna keep bringing up the book just because it's so fresh on my mind. But in your book, you talk about the difference between outbound marketing and inbound.
Right.
And I think, and there was actually a guy when I was at Podcast Movement a couple weeks ago, he's a digital marketer, and I just saw a post he did the other day. He said, we're in a different time. Like, people are not willing to engage your brand unless you're providing some sort of value. Like, if you're putting out a downloadable and it's not worth $100 to them or $500 or more, they're not giving up their email address to you. Even just something as simple as an email address.
Totally. So
that tells you, like, people need a magnet to you, and it's not going to be, well, I mean, let's you actually mentioned we're going to talk about StoryBrand, right? StoryBrand is very clear that you are not the hero in your brand. The client is. The prospect, the customer who you're working with is the hero in their story. So why do we keep trying to step in front of that and make the hero us, our company? Like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. No, I mean, it's almost like the Home Depot, like you can do it, we can help kind of thing. They're the hero. They need to be empowered by your brand to be successful, not the opposite, right?
That's totally incredible. I love that. And I don't know enough of
I didn't come up with that.
I did want to ask you about StoryBrand.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, but I really want to let's keep digging into this. What I think is networking.
Yeah.
So you get up, spend 5-10 minutes talking how to provide value to other people, and why did you do it that way? You ultimately, selfishly, you want customers, but you did it in a kind of like a completely different way.
I 100% believe that when you add that value, it's going to attract people to you. I also knew that I was going to be doing a giveaway of the book. And so if there was people that wanted to engage me from that, they're going to have a way to contact me. It didn't need to be Front Street. It didn't need to be like the primary thing, like, hey, this is who I am, this is my brand, whatever. It gives me now the opportunity to say, hey, here's something for free. This is a value. This book is $20 or whatever it was. And I want to give it to you because I want you to be successful. By the way, if you're super successful, you need to know what to do with cash, right? You need a plan, and I happen to know a guy that can help you, right? So it is somewhat is putting your trust that in the Lord, He's going to provide, and I'm just going to create value.
So let's kind of really dig into networking for a second, because that's one way that someone could essentially network, is that you're providing value to someone. You are doing it from a stage. Let's talk about, because I want to talk about the RIA. Let's talk about Alaria for a second. Yeah, and give people some practical steps. The average person that comes to the RIA is either someone who is not investing but wants to invest, or maybe someone who has invested in the past but is no longer investing, or someone who just got started and maybe did their first deal. That's 75% of the people who come.
Right.
So it's the majority for sure. That person, how can that person that may not know a ton about real estate come to an environment like that and give and network?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to like Mike Kelly, for instance. Mike Kelly, friend of mine, client of mine.
Real quick, Mike Kelly does our book club every single month, the Alaria Book Club. So just in case you didn't know who Mike Kelly was, he does the Alaria Book Club every single month with us.
This guy was green, came in as a fireman. I mean, he had no background, none of this, but he was hungry, he was teachable, and he said, I know I can't do it alone. If you come to an event and you are looking for ways to say, this is what I can bring, right? This is one thing I can do. Or if you're looking at it and you say, maybe I have nothing to do with it. Maybe I have everything to do with, I know this guy and I know this guy and I know they need to meet. Well, just by being the connector, you're adding extreme value. Do I have to have any knowledge of their craft? Like, so an example would be, let's say Mike, he has this great contractor and he's got another investor friend. Well, that investor friend may really need a contractor at this moment, and what most people are doing is they're holding on to it out of scarcity. They're like, I don't want someone else stealing my contractor, so I'm not going to share this good guy I've got over here that's reliable and so on. But when you do that, he makes that introduction. Now all of a sudden that other investor's like, well, wow, I mean, Mike's a stand-up guy. I could do business with this guy. And I mean, he could tell you story after story of ways he has just been a magnet because of that. He's not holding up. He's very abundant, and I think that's the critical factor. When you go to that meeting, you're always looking for how can I add value, not what can I get from this person, right? That's the basis of all network, in my opinion, is how can I give? What can I give? And I got more to say about that, but I mean, I don't want to beat that horse. So one thing I'll say is this, and he talks about it in that 7 Levels book. When you're making phone calls, I mean, it's different at an event, but when you're making phone calls, if the phone feels like it's 1,000 pounds, it's because your motivation for making the phone call is how can it benefit me?
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
But if you, number one, know that you're going to provide value to that next person. So and I don't pretend to know what you do day in, day out as an investor, but I imagine there's a lot of phone calls to be made, right? Well, if those phone calls are made with the heart and the motivation I get the opportunity to invest in this person, right? They're in a bad situation. They need to get rid of this house, and I need to make it worthwhile for them. How can I do that? In this conversation, I get to be the person that does this, not, oh crap, I got to sell this person. What if they don't take my offer? And it's more about what can I do to help them. So that phone call becomes so much easier when you know you're providing value.
I agree. So that's awesome. So you mentioned scarcity versus abundance mentality, because it is easy, and it's almost natural to think that if there's something that we perceive to be sacred, or maybe not sacred, valuable there, and we have it, we want to hang on to it.
That's right.
And we don't want to distribute that to other people. We don't want to give that to other people. Why is it so important and how do we have that mindset? How can we get out of that scarcity mindset of, I've got this great contract, there's no way, I would rather buy a house that I know I'm only going to make very, very, very tiny profit on just to keep him busy so I don't lose him to my competitor.
Yeah.
How do we get out of that mindset and get into the abundance mentality?
I think you have to prove it to yourself to a certain degree.
But how?
By doing it. I mean, if you hold on to the slightest thing and you don't leave it with an open hand, then you're going to constantly you're going to have a lid, in my opinion. Your lid is going to be low. But the more you give of what you've been given, the resources, I mean, at the end of the day, and this is not like a sermon, but ultimately, we talk about tithing sometimes. Tithing is not giving God 10% of what you own. It's, giving him back 10% of what he's given you, 100%, right? He's giving you, it's all his, and you get the opportunity to give him 10%. That's a totally different way of thinking, but that's how we have to think about the resources we've been given in relationships, in skill sets, in time, and other resources. They're all his, and is he not going to continue to provide at a much bigger level? He's proven it over and over. You just have to take him up on it.
That's right. So when you started talking about that in the very beginning, the first thing that came to my mind was tithing. Because you said you have to just do it, and you have to kind of prove it to yourself. I think that's tithing.
100%.
You have to, if you've never done it before, it's scary as can be.
Think about you're first married, you're in that first job, and you don't have enough money to just make ends meet practically. Right. But you start tithing, and it's miraculous. You're provided for it more above and beyond, and it's one of those things that God even says, test me in this, which is kind of funny how he says that, but it's so true. You just have to do it.
So we talked about networking. I think networking is the single most important thing that you can do, really, when it comes to any business at all, but especially real estate investing, especially if you're brand new, you've never done a deal. You need to build out your team, so to speak. You need to try to understand who are the buyers, where are the properties coming from, where are the good title companies. You got to get out there and you got to talk to people, and you have to network. So many times, Joey, we have people come to our meetings, and I say it literally at every meeting when I get up in the very beginning. It's the first thing I say. But we'll have, in the first 5 or 6 rows, people that have just been sitting there for 30 minutes. And I tell them the very first thing, why do we exist? Why does Alleria exist? Why are we here? We are an outlet for you to come and network. That's the number one reason we exist. Because if you guys aren't doing deals, then you're not coming back. We're not providing you any value. If you're not doing any deals, you're not making money, then why do we exist? Right. And the only way to make money is to get out there and talk to people.
That's right. And I think in preparation, again, if you come to those meetings thinking, well, I don't want to miss my spot or whatever, again, you're missing the point. If you're thinking, what can I get from these people, you're missing the point. You may have very little to offer at the beginning, but the more you start to figure out what is your lane, I'm again bringing up your book, at first you're in wholesaling, and then you're in this other realm, and you start to figure out, where do I jive? Like what is my skill set really, brought me into? And then the team can be built out from that. But figure out where you land, where you can provide the most value, and stay in that kind of lane, and then consistently add value to the people that may not have those skill sets.
Totally. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about StoryBrand.
Yeah.
StoryBrand is something that that I just now kind of found out about, even though it's been out for a little while. Kind of created by this guy named Donald Miller, and I'm a Donald Miller fan in like 2001, 2002. Blue Like Jazz. Blue Like Jazz is like one of the freaking most incredible books I've ever read. He has autographed that book for me 4 different times. The same book in 4 different places.
Nice.
He autographed it on Don Astronaut, on Don, like on all the different places in the book that I wanted him to. He's autographed it, and he dated it all 4 times. So I haven't seen him in a while. The last time I saw him is when, I can't remember the name of the book. I think it might have been 2009 or 10. The book with the orange or yellow cover. I don't know if you remember that one.
I don't.
Anyway, that's the last time I saw
him. Something.
I can't remember. Anyway, that's the last time I saw him, so hopefully I get to see him again soon. But he created this thing called StoryBrand that we are internally just now starting to study. Joey, you guys are actually using this.
We are.
Every day. Tell us what it is.
So, we use it on our podcast. In fact, we just interviewed J.J. Peterson, his co-host, on his podcast, Don Miller's StoryBrand podcast.
Wow.
So that should be rolling out here in the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
But anyway, it is a framework. So there's more to it. I'm not going to do it very good justice here. But for us, what StoryBrand did is it helped us to have a framework to think about our business. And like I mentioned before, one of the primary key principles is you're not the hero. Most brands, that's like, it's the simplest idea, but it's like the world-rocking reality. Like, I'm not the hero. I thought I was supposed to be like touting myself and what we can do and our services and benefits and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, look, you need to tell a story with your brand, and it starts with your customer. Your customer is the hero. And what does that customer want? Well, in this case, let's use Alariah, right? Well, an investor, what do they want? They want some realm of financial freedom. They want freedom of time from their job. They want something to change their current situation, right? But there's a problem, right? And this is where he gets into the second element. There's a villain holding you back.
Holding who back? Not the company, the client.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in this case, let's call it just a real estate investor. Or somebody that wants to become an investor. Something's holding them back. So it's a lack of education, or it's lack of time.
There's like I was thinking the villain might be there's like another group in town, but it's like a bad guy. It's like a bad group.
It could be something like that. Absolutely.
Totally joking.
Holding you back.
Totally joking. The innuendo is not real. Completely joking.
But something is holding back. Maybe it's limiting beliefs. Like we talked about in your book. Being told you're not going to amount to anything. Well, that could be holding somebody back from taking that step,
right,
of joining ARIA to begin with. But then somehow, some way, they meet a guide in the story. That happens to be Alariah, the brand. The brand is bringing, it's the Yoda, it's the, the guide that's going to bring Luke Skywalker on his journey. And so you're not necessarily, and the only reason it makes you a guide is, one, you've been there, done that. Like, you've empathized with them. Like, man, I was in your shoes. I was coaching basketball, and I felt like I was in a dead end deal. I didn't know where to go, and then I ran into Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever. Right. Now you got authority because you have years of experience. I've done deals. I've been there. So that gives you that ability to speak into that hero's life. And so, anyways, you go on from there. There's a process. There's a future that looks bright, and you're constantly just putting that out in front of people. Long story short, your brand should be telling that story, and your client or your prospective person you're trying to do business with should see themselves being more successful as a result of engaging your brand. If they don't see that, they're not interested.
They've got to see what's in it for them.
Right, exactly. And so we've used it in our podcast to give us a framework of how we actually talk to guests, how we roll out information to our client base. That's really our primary purpose of our podcast. So we're trying to use the whole framework as we're discussing topics and things like that. We use it in our presentations, and so it's been super helpful. We redid our website because they recommended certain layouts and things like that. So I'm a huge fan.
So you completely changed, you rebranded.
That's right.
You changed the name of your company.
We did.
You changed everything.
Yeah, they talk about like your brand should tell that brief story in really a couple lines or less, right? And what we realized when we were going through this process is like the name Wealth Without Wallstreet, which was just our podcast name, was communicating what we do better than our previous name. So we just scrapped the old names and said, we got to go with Wealth Without Wallstreet. It just makes more sense.
Yeah. So you guys know I talk about branding and marketing a lot on the show. I really do. I think if you're a real estate investor and you're trying to find your own deals, you're a marketer.
Oh,
you're trying to find deals. I don't care if you're wholesaling them or if you're using those deals and you're buying them yourself and you're holding them or you're flipping them, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're finding your own deal, you have to market. You have to do marketing to get that deal. So as a marketer or as maybe even a brand, I guess there are very few real estate investors out there who would say they have an actual brand, because it's more like we're just generic. We just want to be generic. We just want to be, we buy houses just generic. But for the few out there that actually feel like they do have a brand, like we have a brand, Alabama Cash Deals is our wholesaling name and brand. We're recognized in our community. We're sending out marketing with our brand on it. So we feel like we have a brand. Talk about, Joey, for you, the potential struggle that you might have encountered or the challenges that you might have encountered in the very beginning when you're rebranding. That seems like everybody knows you as this, but
right.
Now you're going to be this. It seems pretty daunting.
It was to a certain degree, but in some ways it made things simpler, because really up to that point, and just, for anybody that doesn't know, like our company was Blueprint Financial Partners, and that was great because my primary focus is with entrepreneurs that are real estate focused. So Blueprint, I was like, okay, playing off of that name, but really what I perceived the brand to be and what others perceived the brand to be were totally different. I thought, well, the name says I work with real estate professionals. That's a good thing. But when you actually mention it to people, they're like, well, it sounds like a financial firm, like every other financial firm. And so when we started throwing out the name Wealth Without Wallstreet, it was like you could visibly tell people understood that better. So it was like, this makes our life a little bit easier to rebrand. It was difficult to have to communicate to clients like, hey, nothing's wrong, we're just changing the name because it just resonates better with our audience. And so I don't know, it wasn't terribly difficult. I'm actually more excited that we did it because it makes things a lot simpler.
Awesome. Joey, thank you for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. I think that we got a lot of value out of just how do you network. I think a lot of people just don't get it. They don't understand how to network. I had someone come up to me, one of my coaching students came up to me and said, you know what, I don't really like networking because I feel like I'm asking too much of people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you probably don't know what networking is then, because it's the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you shed light on that. And then talking about StoryBrand, talking about your company, how you made that transition. We really appreciate being able to visualize that. If someone wants to reach out to you or learn more about you, and especially the podcast, how can someone get in touch with you?
Yeah, our website is wealthwithoutwallstreet.com. You can go there, you can listen to our podcast directly there. You can find us on iTunes, you can find us on Stitcher, any of those, however you listen to podcasts. You can email me. That's one thing I was going to mention. this is not something that you can't get yourself, but I'm happy to share. If you need like a memory jogger, something that will help you kind of think about, man, who's in my network that I can sit down and try to connect. It's amazing when people go through this kind of step by step. It will make you a better networker. Use this memory jogger. It's got a list of like 5 pages of different types of occupations and people and professionals that you may already know. And you just start writing names out next to this. You'll find, man, I have 150 plus people that know me and I know them well enough to where I could call them and be like, hey so and so, tell me one thing I can do for your business this week. That's an easy phone call to make, number one. They want to hear from you when you're calling them with that. And then you find opportunities to connect them with somebody else. Anyways, long story short, the memory jogger, it's something that Michael Mayer produced. I have a copy. I'm happy to share it with anybody. If you want to email me, you can find my email on our website, or it's just joey@wealthwithoutwallstreet.com, and I'm happy to forward that.
We'll put all that in the show notes. We're going to put link up your podcast as well. Guys, go listen to that podcast, Wealth Without Wall Street. That Joe, you hosted or you help host it? Or
yeah, Russ Morgan and I are co-hosts on it.
Awesome.
And my business partner. So I am referenced as the Italian Stallion on there. So I know you were very uncomfortable calling me that today, which is totally fine. But just don't be surprised if you hear me referenced that way.
So you're not Joey.
Well, yeah, I'm both.
Okay, all right. Well, cool. Joey, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for referencing the book, too. So if you haven't gotten the book, go to...
You got to get the book.
Total shameless plugs going on. We're going to link up the link for you guys to go get the book. We gave it away for free for a long time, ran out of the free copies, so now you have to go and you have to pay for it, unfortunately. But you can either go to nothingsforsale.com and the link is there, or you can just go to Amazon. You can just search for my name, Brian Trippe, or the name of the book, Nothing's for Sale. It'll pop right up. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We love you guys so much. If you're not coming to our RIA meetings, make sure you're coming. We're the second Thursday night of every single month at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Homewood, Alabama. So even if you're just driving by and you want to stop by, it's the second Thursday night. Come on by. We get started around 6 o'clock. We love you so much. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.